Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Tom's Life Lab, and I am honoured to be joined today by Stacie Shifflett. Stacie joins us from Virginia in the United States of America, and she is the founder of Modern Consciousness. Stacie, welcome to the Life Lab. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant. Well, we're really looking forward to diving in to some of your specialist subject areas. But before we do, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your background, where you came from, and a bit about your life and career.
Oh gosh, I was born in Miami, Florida. My family moved to Virginia when I was very young to create a better life. Right? They wanted to get good, solid jobs, government positions. But my life in general has been super interesting. I have taken so many turns. I've always been a little bit I kind of had the attitude of doing it myself, right? And
Yeah.
I love to figure things out for myself. And while that irritated my mom a bit at times, they were very supportive of me, and that really has been what has led me just sort of naturally. I didn't figure out that I kind of did this naturally till later in life, of sort of reinventing my life about every decade. So I have, I went to work at 16, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. I was in the hospitality business for about a decade. Switched over to, I don't know, a technical job, I guess. It was very hard to go from being a bartender to getting an office job. And a woman at my mother's church actually offered me the first office job, and doing a little bit of word processing and bookkeeping and some of that. And she was a very small government contractor, woman-owned government contracting, and here in the DC area. And I just really took to that, right? So within a year of having no skills, I'm pretty much self-taught. I quit college. I rolled out the first desktop computers to the Department of Health and Human Services. I designed all of the programs, training programs and all of that myself, did the rollout. Built that, I don't know, got a job at a help desk with a company that did federal acquisition systems, and somehow, just in my way of being focused and doing the best that I could do and being present and involved with what I was doing, led up to being a subject matter expert in that field. Let's see, somewhere along the line, I had a llama farm. I decided
A
to
llama
raise
farm.
llamas. Yes, I showed
Wow.
them all over the country. So, there's a lot of diversity in my life.
Yeah.
Then I'm trying to give it to you in a nutshell. I woke up one morning. I'm very big on intuition, and I woke up one morning and said, "Oh my gosh, I need to buy this software company." And it was a company I was familiar with, and I followed that intuitive hit and ended up doing an acquisition of a $50 million technology company without any personal investment.
Wow.
And that's a very fascinating story. And when they flipped, I took my money and got out. I had a construction company in DC, built 4 and 5 story apartment buildings. I closed that, and here I am doing modern consciousness.
Wow. That is some story,
Diverse.
Stacey. Yeah. Where was the alpaca? Sorry, the llama farm. Where was that?
The llama farm was here in Virginia.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was looking for something, I like to be busy, and I was very fortunate to be home with my son for a few years when he was very young, and when he was born. So I was married at the time. I'm not any longer, but we had bought a 40-acre farm, and I looked at what I could do to keep the land in land use and something that I would love. And I had llamas. I had as many as 40 at one time. I
Wow.
showed them all over the country, and it was a great learning experience, a great place to raise a family. And so I've done a little bit of everything, right? My mother would be like, how did you figure out how to birth a llama, right? I mean, I could put on the gloves and turn a baby that was breech and
Wow.
birth it. So
Yeah.
comfortable in the boardroom, comfortable just about anywhere, in the
Yeah.
bar, in the barn,
Sounds
just
like it.
wherever.
Yeah. Wow, what a story. And so tell us then about modern consciousness. What is it and how did you have that idea to start it?
Well, it came to me after meditation, and the information started flowing through me with regard to the different aspects of modern consciousness. It's really about conscious living in the modern world with our modern issues, stressors, whatever that you want to call it. And it was a very fascinating experience for me because I was getting these downloads. I don't know what else to call it, and capturing all of this information. And I just kept saying, I am not your girl, right? I'm not your girl. I'm 67 now. I was, I don't know, in my early 60s at the time. I had closed the construction company, and it just was relentless. Information kept coming. I just had so much passion for it, but I kept resisting it. And I was meditating again another day, and I finally was like, okay, look, I surrender, right? I surrender. You're not going to leave me alone. These are the conversations I have with the universe,
Yeah.
right? You're not going to leave me alone. So what the heck do you want me to do? What is my next best step? And I got one word, which was to write. And I said, okay, well, I've been writing, but I said, okay, I'll do it. I don't know how, but I'll do it. And within an hour, two tops, I had a text message from a friend that had a publisher friend in Canada that was doing a collaborative book with Les Brown. And she said she's got an opening in that book. Would you like to take part in it? So as I rolled my eyes to the sky above, I said yes, because I couldn't say no.
Yeah.
And that's when I officially started the company, right? As I started writing my chapter in the book and realizing that with the launch of that, I could create the company that I have today, which is Modern Consciousness.
And tell us about some of the work that you do in modern consciousness.
Yes, I am very passionate about helping people chart what I call their treasure map to joy. And I have done a lot of personal development work. I got very deep into personal development work after my marriage imploded after 28 years. And, I thought I was doing everything right. And, I got myself a home. My construction company was running at the time. So I was fortunate in that I had, financial security and some of these things. And it was a couple of years into it that I really realized that I was waiting for something to organically change in my life. I was still hung up on some anger and resentment. And I was like, Stacie, everything you've created in your life, I call it right action now, right? You have to take right action on the ideas that you have in order to create the life that you want. So I got very, very deeply involved with personal development and spiritual development. And so I have a very strategic mind. Project management is like, I'm an excellent analyst. I can see, and that's one of the reasons why my careers have been so favorable to me as well. I can see the big picture and the details all at the same time. I have a lot of curiosity. I ask a lot of questions. I have a lot of good insight. And these are things that others have told me along the way. So I have taken my personal experience and then what I learned from so many others and crafted it into a program that I call Elevate Your Life, which guides people to create their treasure map to joy. I think a lot of people try to change too many things at once. I've seen so many people that have gone to seminars and they might have a breakthrough or they have an epiphany and they get very, very excited, but they get home and they really have no idea how to practically put that into their life so that they get effective results.
Yeah.
And so that's what I do in my process. Yeah.
So in terms of the process then, so how do you help somebody to develop that treasure map to joy? What sort of things do you look at in life?
The very first thing that I do with everybody, and I recommend that everybody do it, is take a life assessment. We evaluate so many things in our lives routinely. We put oil in the car, we go to our annual doctor appointment, we watch our bank
Yeah.
accounts, whatever, our business performance, but we never really stop, and we're never really taught to stop and look at it all holistically. How everything affects everything else, how that area of your life is within itself, what's going well, what isn't, how is it
Mm.
impacting other areas? Because if you're having issues in one area, what I find is that it's creating issues in other areas of your life as well. You just may not recognize it because it's disguised. It manifests. It looks like something else.
Mm.
So I do an assessment, and it's a very guided process. I'm rolling it out right now as a do-it-yourself as well as do with me. And then, there's a module that goes over aspirations, which is always very interesting. What you aspire to achieve in those areas. And normally I don't use the language achieve. I use that less often than I use the language experience. What do you want to be experiencing?
Mm.
Because our emotions are really our guide, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we define the aspirations. Again, it's a guided process. Then we architect the bridge. So here's where you are. Here's where you want to be. What do you want to focus on first? What's going to get you the most result the fastest, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes one small change can have a very large effect on all of your life.
Mm.
And then I go through an activation process, which really transforms your aspirations into actionable items. And then the last module is an alignment, where you really keep your life aligned.
Mm.
We stay focused and intentional on what it is you want to create, because you're really changing habits, even if that habit is mindset, which is huge. And so I was very deliberate about this process. I knew what I wanted to create, and I wanted to create it in such a way that it could be an experience that people could do with me,
Mm.
but also something that people could do
Yeah.
themselves. And the thing that I love about this program, it's my program, so I'm going to say I love it. But once you go through it, particularly if you go through it with me, but once you go
Mm.
through it, it's a very practical, logical process, and it helps you strategically think about all of these things that you may not have thought about, right? Because we tend
Sure.
to have our blinders on. So once you do it, you can do it time and again on your own.
Mm.
And you can pick the next best step and the next best step to create the life that you want to be living and that you want to be experiencing.
Yeah. I loved what you said that about we don't look at what we want to achieve, we look at what we want to experience. Because I think achievements are very sort of output focused, which are not necessarily, it's not within our control whether we achieve something, but it is within our control where we focus our experiences. And it just feels like a more fruitful way of living life, a more enjoyable way.
Yeah, we tend to forget, and we do these things with good intentions, but we tend to forget. And an example I love to use is, gosh, I mean, my kid's older now, but, you know, I know so many families that enroll, they've got their son in soccer and hockey, and daughter in dance or
Mm.
cheer, and, everybody's running around, and you're doing it for a good reason, right? So I like to
Mm.
stay outcome focused, right? And we're enrolling our children in these things to help them grow, and but we lose sight of that because we become stressed out, right? So
Mm.
the way I like to put it is when the activities of our lives create the momentum versus the intention, that's where stress happens. So what they end
Yeah.
up doing is, nobody gets to eat dinner around the table. You're picking the kid up from school, you're running them to
Yeah.
soccer, you're on the phone while you're doing it. You're sitting by
Yeah.
the soccer field and you're taking care of your business emails. So your actions, what you're actually doing is not aligned with your desired outcome.
Yeah.
So instead of using that time to have conversations with your kids to really be present, being present is huge in my
Yeah.
book
Yeah.
with whatever you're doing. I'm present when I go to the grocery store. I have a blast in the grocery store. So we have these good intentions, but the execution of them, we lose the focus of that in the execution, and it's because we're not looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah. Love that. You've mentioned the word intentions quite a few times, and I'm interested in this idea about being intentional because I'm a big fan of intention in the work that I do with leaders, but also in life. Like, how do you bring being intentional to life?
It's really through awareness, right? You
Mm.
have to be aware. You have to train yourself to be aware of your thoughts and, our subconscious in particular, and it pops up all the time
Mm.
in subtle ways and sometimes not so subtle, right? When we don't listen to that little voice, it gets louder and louder until we have some sort of crisis.
Yeah.
So it's really a matter of staying aware and being intentional about it. So, for example, I've released worry. I used to be a worrier years ago, and I have sort of inadvertent, but the outcome of it has been to change my default emotion. Right.
Mm.
So many times somebody stays in the default emotion of stress or anxiety or frustration or what have
Mm.
you.
Yeah.
I have really changed my default emotion to one of joy. And that doesn't mean that bad things don't happen. It doesn't
Mm.
mean that we don't have circumstances that are way less than perfect, right? Like my house flooding in the hurricane last year. I'm still displaced from my home.
Yeah. It's terrible.
But when you catch yourself falling into that hole, right, it's like, okay, so yes, I'm going to process the emotions around what I'm feeling because it's very important to do that. We don't want to bottle them up. So
Mm.
you set up time to do that, but you have to pay attention to what you're telling yourself, your self-talk, right? So
Yeah.
just within doing that time and time again and being aware of it, it's just like with my home flooding. It's like it sucks. There's no other way
Yeah.
to say it.
Yeah.
But I still stay in gratitude because my situation is way better than so many other people's. There's
Yeah.
nothing I can do about it. I'm fortunate to have insurance. I had just inches in my home where some people had 3 to 5 feet of water.
Yeah.
I have the financial means to do the repairs without having to wait for insurance payments. So it's a matter of shifting your perspective to what's going right,
Yeah.
where your blessings are, and intentionally putting more focus on that. And
Yeah.
if you're having a bad day, fine, have a bad day. If you need to sit down and have a cry, sit down and get it out, and then
Yeah.
go,
Yeah.
okay, well now, what do I have to be grateful for in this situation? What's going well in this situation? So it's a matter, mindset matters, right? That was my latest
Yeah.
book with Jack Canfield, and it is so very true, but it takes right action and it takes effort to retrain yourself to think that way.
Yeah. It just reminds me of a couple of things, Stacey. So, in one of the big railway stations in London is called London Euston, and it's a very crowded railway station. And when you come out of the underground, the subway, you can tell straight away if all the trains are cancelled because there's been a problem on the line on the way out because the room is full and everybody's feeling very, there's a lot of tense energy around in the room. And you have to make a choice at that point because it's very easy to get upset because you're not going to get out of there for hours. Your train's delayed, but you've got a choice. There's nothing you can do about it. So you can have a choice. You can either sit and be upset about it, or you can sit down, grab your book and enjoy just a couple of hours of relaxing and thinking about something else. You've got
It's
choices.
true, isn't it? So in that situation, I'd be like, okay, so I'm going to go above ground for a little bit and find myself a wonderful meal, right?
Yeah,
Enjoy my book.
yeah,
What else are you going to do? You can't do it. So when we get in these downward spirals, it feeds more of that within us, right? It just
Yeah.
creates more frustration. So it's logical that if we're feeding more gratitude and being more relaxed in the situation and letting things go, surrendering to the situation, if you will, there's
Yeah.
nothing you could do about it. So you might as well be as happy as you can while you're enduring whatever it is.
Exactly. Yeah. Good advice. Tell me a little bit then about emotional triggers and dealing with emotional triggers, because I suppose emotional triggers are responsible for quite a lot of our stress and our unhappiness. So how do you think we can respond to emotional triggers more effectively?
Yeah, I think if I could only give people one, if there was only one piece of advice I could give people, it would be to calm those emotional triggers. Because they are, it's us reacting more often than not without thought.
Yeah.
And it's worth exploring why we're reacting that way. So again, first you have to be aware of it, and then you really need to sit down and go, okay, why is that upsetting me? If a simple household situation, right? If your partner or your kid or whatever loads a dishwasher and it's not a good job, you don't like the way they do it, and you get in there and you're reacting, you're like, oh my god, and this, and now I'm going to redo it. It's like everybody's upset. The intention probably of that person was to actually help you out.
Yeah.
And so, why are you reacting to that? Well, are you reacting to that because of the dishwasher isn't loaded the way you want? Is it really because you like to control situations? Are you feeling unsupported in other areas of your life? So we have to dig a little deeper and kind of figure that out. And then another thing that I love to do is perspective shifting. And that is, okay, I'm going to step out of this situation and I'm going to look at my reaction and my behavior, but what does the other person or the other people in that situation, what do I think, how do I think they're perceiving the situation?
Yeah.
And then also, if there was just an independent observer over here somewhere that had nothing to do with it, what would they think about it? So that helps us step out of our narrow vision and gain perspective. Perspective is huge. And I actually do have a free resource on my website that is navigating your emotional triggers. And it's just a free workbook. And it's like, if there's only one piece of advice I could give people, it's get a hold of those. And my goodness, we have so many stressors in this world right now. We are responsible for ourselves. We're responsible for our actions. We're responsible for our reactions. It isn't what the other person did. We're responsible for it.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very big into that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's brilliant. And I mean, I think, when I think about the things that trigger me emotionally, I mean, I think you probably have been in our house and seen me looking at the dishwasher when it's not been loaded correctly. So I sometimes have an emotional response to that. But I think, some of these emotional responses, they're so deep in our evolution as a species, but they're not helping us in the modern world, because a badly stacked dishwasher is not really a threat to us, and I suppose but our bodies still think it is. And I think it's such good advice to recognise that, and we will link to that resource that you mentioned in the show notes, so that
Thank you.
and
Yeah, I
access
think
them.
when we realize our humanness, right, and as you said, it is built into us. We are wired for that, right? But it's overused. We don't have the threats that we used to have.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins used to say, we're not running away from the saber-toothed tiger anymore, right? But we still react at that level. It's very, very important. You'll be a lot happier if you calm your triggers, right?
Yeah,
Just
definitely.
appreciate that the kid loaded the dishwasher, and okay, so you might take something else out and wash it, or just go ahead and run a cycle and thank them
Yeah.
for helping,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
that creates more help, right? That just, I don't know. You get what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
I do, yeah. It's really great. I mean, I think it's really great advice. We're jumping around a bit, but I did want to talk as well about, because you mentioned when you talked about your career at the beginning, you talked about this idea of reinventing yourself several times. And And I wanted to dig into that a bit more, and what it's like to reinvent yourself, and why that's been. I don't know. Has that been important for you? Has it been enjoyable? Like, tell us more about that.
It has been. I like new things, and I like to learn new things. So
Mm,
I naturally am drawn to that. I have generally had a lot of confidence over the years that I could do things and step into them, and I could sell that confidence, if you will, but I also delivered, right? I mean, I can
yeah.
remember, how old was I? 18, 19? I don't know. I don't even remember what the drinking age was at that time. I might have been 20. But
Mm,
even at that young age, I remember walking into a local restaurant bar establishment, right, that had been around for a long time. And I walked in and I asked to talk to the manager, and I said, hey, now I had been working in Washington, D.C., so prices were different, so on and so forth. But I remember walking in and saying, I've been here, I've been a customer, I know your menu, I see what you're doing, and I can help you make more money. If you hire
mm,
me, I will help you make more money. We're going to redo your drink menu, we're going to change your pricing. I didn't know anything about business at that point, but I had the idea
yeah.
and I followed the idea. So my intuition was telling me, go do this. And I went and did it. And it's the same sort of framework, for lack of a better word, that I did when I did the acquisition of the software company.
Yeah.
People thought I was crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
But again, I woke up that morning and I was like, I need to call them because I knew them and see if I could buy, if I could buy that company. I don't know how because I don't have any money. And I talked to one of the owners. I knew them, and he said, "Oh, well, we just listed it with a broker." So at first, I was like, "Oh, gosh, okay." But really, that was the best thing that could have happened because that allowed me to work with the broker, and I pulled someone in with me that had an MBA and had a little bit of merger and acquisition experience because again, I'm all self-trained, I'm self-taught. I had some
Mm,
great mentors along the way, but I didn't have the credentials, right, that people look for.
yeah.
And I had no experience in that, and it took 9 months. And even the partner that I pulled in to do that deal with me kept saying, we'll never do this. They called me a cashless investor. People were like, you are out of your mind.
Mm,
But I knew in my heart that it would happen. I felt very confident. Everybody we pitched the business to honestly wanted in on the deal. It was one of the top investment firms in the world, that ended up buying the company at that time. That was back in, gosh, 2005.
mm,
So I didn't listen to others. I listened to what was in my heart,
mm,
right? So I think that has had a lot to do with it. When I started the llama farm, I didn't know how to raise livestock.
yeah.
So I learned how to do it, and I had experience, and I learned a lot from my vet, and I joined a local association, and a national association, for
Mm,
those for the llamas, right? How crazy is that?
yeah.
But so I learned, right?
Yeah.
And if you're interested and devoted and passionate and curious versus, I think curiosity is huge, and I think you mentioned something about that on your website even.
Yeah. I mean, I love curiosity. Yeah.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
stay open and curious instead of listening to those critical voices in your head or the
Mm,
critical voices of other people that say, you can't do this. Oh, why can't I do it? I can do whatever I want to do.
yeah. Yeah. So, self-talk is such a big topic, for me. How I speak to myself to encourage me to do new things. And, I'm getting into my late 40s now, and I feel like I'm braver now than I've ever been to try new things. And, just like trying new things like, building podcasts and things like that, writing books. It's scary, but it's so satisfying if you can, have that courage to do it. And I think I found by always keep telling myself that I'm the person that has got the courage and I am brave and I can do these things. It's really helped me to sort of power through and achieve some things which I never thought I'd achieve. So I think it's so important.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Mm.
it's we should be our biggest cheerleader. right? We
Yeah.
should talk to ourselves the way that we would talk to a loved one, when we're trying to encourage, support them, right?
Yeah.
And we don't, just by default, so often we don't do that to ourselves. So
Mm.
again, it's raising your awareness that, oh, this is a thing, right? It is a self-sabotaging habit, understanding what it is,
Yeah.
and through awareness, catching yourself, and then intentionally flipping it, right?
Yeah.
Put a different perspective on it and flip the script.
Yeah. Stacey, I could talk to you for hours. It's been a brilliant conversation. I'd like to just leave us with a broader question, which is about how you think people can build a life that they love. Like, what would your advice be to the people listening to this episode?
I think that they need to do a life assessment. I think, and you don't have to have me to do it. You could pretty much
Mm.
look at all the buckets of your lives and figure out what's working well and what isn't. I think that that's
Yeah.
very important to get a baseline of where you are and really understanding what's causing some, frustration or angst, and then kind of figure out, well, what would you rather be experiencing in
Mm.
that? And it's it's really profound, and looking at, you shift it from the external sort of gratification and the external achievements and pull it back to your personal outcomes.
Mm.
And we lose sight of that, right? We're not really taught that in school, and so on and so forth, and it's not selfish. So what do you personally want to create in your life?
Yeah.
And it's important to focus on that. And a lot of times, some seasons of our lives are not as it's not as easy to do that,
Mm.
but we have to remind ourselves, and I think that gets back to awareness and intention and mindset, but really focus on the outcomes and
Yeah.
what is your experience. If you hate your life or some aspect of your life, why? Right? Like, I've never
Mm.
understood people that hate their job.
Yeah.
Why do you want to go work somewhere every day because you hate it? Or what is it that you hate about it? Do you hate about it that you're not succeeding based on cultural perspectives?
Mm.
Does it really suit what you want? Right? So sometimes it's those shifts, right? Maybe that job gives you the money that you need to live on comfortably, and it's 9 to 5, and there may not be a lot of growth, but that's fine with you because it gives you the time to do other things that you want to do. So I think that's why it's so important to really sit down and look at it and do some analysis on it,
Yeah. 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 Brilliant advice. And Stacey, thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us today. Where can people find you if they want to find out more?
They can find me on my website, modernconsciousness.com, and I'm sure you'll share that in the show
I
notes.
will.
And every way to contact me is available on my website. So,
Excellent.
social media and everything.
Well, I really hope you get your house sorted and you get back home sometime soon so that you
Soon.
can put that little episode behind you. And thank you again for joining us today. And I wish you every success in the world, Stacey. Thank you.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it immensely. Thanks, Tom.
Brilliant. See you all next time.